Hello and welcome to another Kings at Home Daily. We are working our way through the New Testament book of Acts, and we're in chapter 16 today, verses 6 to 10. So do grab a Bible and we'll get going in verse 6. And we'll just work our way through it like we normally do. So verse 6 says, Paul and his companions travelled throughout the region of Phrygia and Galatia. So Phrygia and Galatia, I don't know what your geography is like. Mine, not so great. Even present day England, not very good. Let alone 2,000 years ago, Middle East, not great. Phrygia and Galatia, though, I've done some research. These are loyal provinces to Rome, and they are located in modern day Turkey, and the people there would have worshipped lots of different deities. We get this picture actually in chapter 14 of Acts, where Paul and Barnabas are mistaken for being the gods Zeus and Hermes. The people's worldview was of these different modern deities, and so really the experience that Paul and Barnabas has is they're entering into a completely different worldview. When they went there with the message that there's one God, that you worship him alone, and that the only way to get to be reconciled back to that God is through Jesus Christ, this message would be completely alien and antithetical to the worldview of the people there. A huge challenge really for bringing the gospel to this place. But that's where they're travelling. They're travelling throughout those regions. Now they're travelling throughout those regions, it says in verse 6, because they've been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. So we see in these few verses actually of the way that God works as we step out. And Paul and his companions experience a really firm closing of the door to preaching the word in Asia. Now, you might think, but were they not told to preach the word? Were they not doing what God had called them to? Did God not want the gospel to go to Asia? And these questions can arise on the back of a closed door. It's not actually the only closed door that they face. Quite quickly it says, when they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. So we've had a first closed door to Asia, had a second closed door to Bithynia, and you could understand if they were starting to feel frustrated and discouraged as they're trying to step out and be faithful even in the face of persecution and the face of opposition, even at the cost of their own reputations and at the cost of their own lives. You could imagine them getting discouraged and despondent. Now, we don't pick that up. It's amazing, really. They just keep being faithful with what God has called them to do, which is to make disciples and to be witnesses. The reality is that sometimes the Holy Spirit does put walls up. Sometimes the Holy Spirit guides us away from one thing and into another thing. That the no's that we face are often actually just a yes to something else. That yes might come down the line. We might not see what it is when we have to say no to something because God is closing that door. But actually we can be encouraged that God is at work. We see that in Romans 8 verse 28 where it says we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. So God cares. He cares about us. He cares about our good. He cares about how things will turn out for us. So a no from God is for our good. It's because he has other things in store for us. He has better plans and purposes for us. For the people here, Paul and his companions, actually the yes was an invitation and an open door into Macedonia. It was an open door into Europe. Paul was thinking like, let's go here, let's go to Asia, Bithynia, and preach the word there. And that would have been good. But actually God was thinking, no, I want my gospel to go out into Europe. I want it to spread out into this whole area of the world that the gospel has not gone to yet. I've got big plans for this place, and I want you to preach the gospel. If you go to these other places, you're not going to go to this other place. So God closes the door and opens another door. That's how God works. It's how God works. We're not to be discouraged, but to trust God, to see that God is at work over and above all of our circumstances. And I just want to draw our attention really to another part in Acts where we see this at work. And I want to draw our attention to it so that we can, out of faith, see that God does work in the closed doors. He does work where things are not straightforward or simple, or where we seemingly are having doors shut against us as well. So early on in Acts, Jesus says to the disciples, "Go and be my witnesses in Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." And they're in Jerusalem already, so they're being witnesses there. But he says, go into these other places, these other regions, and be my witnesses. We fast forward to Acts chapter 8, and a persecution is coming upon the church. Saul is rising up. He's putting people in prison, and people are being murdered, and Christians are being scattered as a result of the persecution. And it says in verse 1 of chapter 8 that the great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem, and everyone apart from the apostles were scattered throughout, and these are the places, Judea and Samaria. The persecution might have seemed like a closed door. It might have seemed like this is suffering, this is hard work,